I think there are 6 important factors that contribute to an amazing relationship. And the 6 that I feel are really important are the attachment style you have, the things you want and need in a relationship, your core values and beliefs, whether you do or don't do boundaries well, reciprocity, give and take, and how you interact and react with your partner. So I'm going to talk to you about attachment initially, and I don't know if you ever heard this word before or not, but attachment is something we therapists know a lot about. And attachment is about the way we connect really early on in life. So what I want you to do while I'm talking about attachment is think about if you can recognize perhaps your parents' style of attachment through what I'm saying, maybe your own style, a partner's, a current partner's, or a previous partner's, and just listen to some of the things I'm saying, see if you can pick out things that describe the ways you might interact with some of these people. So what is attachment exactly? Well, attachment is the biological root of love. It is it refers to the way we relate to other people, and our attachment style is actually formed from birth to about the first 3 years of our life. This style of relating that we learn so early on when we're infants is actually used in our intimate relationships and the way we parent our own children as we get older. During infancy, how our parents respond to us establishes our style of attaching, and so it's about when you see a small baby cry and you watch your mum who will then soothe that child. That baby learns, if I want to get my needs met, I need to do very specific behaviours, and my mother responds to me. Depending on whether our parents were very responsive to us and took care of us in a way that was helpful or not, will depend on the style of attachment that we actually have. So that style is taught to us really, really, really early on in life, and it's the style that tells us how we get our needs met by a significant other. And that pattern that we learn in that really, really early stage of life, we take through with us for the rest of our lives into every other intimate connection that we have. So personal relationships, intimate relationships, and relationships with our own children. These styles of attaching go on to guide the way we feel, some of the thoughts we have, and our expectations within our intimate relationships. So I'm sure you can understand, given that it's really important for you to understand your attachment style and the attachment style of your partner or a prospective partner, because if you have very different attachment styles, you're going to have some really big struggles in your relationship. Also, if you have an attachment style that is quite challenging for you, it's going to be hard for your partner to meet you where you want them to. So in understanding what your attachment style is, it gives you the opportunity to try and structure a relationship differently. So there are lots of different styles of attaching, but the 3 most common, and the 3 that I'm going to focus on, are secure attachment, anxious, and avoidant. And according to research, 60% of the population are securely attached, 20% are anxiously attached, and 20% are avoidant. I have to say that in my clinical work, I don't see that, but then people don't generally come and see me when they have really good secure attachment styles because their relationships are going really well. So I see probably more anxiously attached individuals and some avoidant attached individuals in my clinical practice. All right, so what are the secure characteristics of an adult who has a secure attachment style? So they feel secure and connected to their partner, generally speaking. They allow themselves and their partner to have freedom within the relationship. They are able to offer support when their partner feels distressed and to receive support when they are feeling distressed. They go to their partner for comfort when they are troubled. The relationship tends to be honest, open, and equal, with both people feeling independent yet loving towards each other. They feel confident that their partners will be there for them when they need them, and they're open to depending on others and having others depend on them. Okay, so if we move into the next style, which is our anxious characteristics, and this really is a style that has a double-edged sword, so it's a really tricky style. So some of the characteristics include being suspicious and distrustful on one hand, but at the same time feeling clingy and needy, and sometimes even desperate on the other. There's a level of self-criticism and insecurity. Usually there's a strong belief that they're going to be rejected, and this can lead to lots of worry and not trusting people. They can assume the role of pursuer, especially if the other person is distancing. It can really make them quite frantic to pursue. There can be outbursts of anger followed by pleas for forgiveness and support, and usually that's about when they have an attachment wound. Oops, there's my phone. When they have an attachment wound, that will really agitate them and distress them, and so they can become quite angry, but then they feel really terrible afterwards. So it's a really painful kind of attachment style. Okay, avoidant characteristics in adults. These particular adults have a strong need for independence and self-sufficiency, and they are far more important to these people than intimacy is. They do enjoy closeness, but for a limited period of time. So when you see avoidant adults, they tend to want and they need closeness, but it can feel really engulfing and overwhelming if it goes on for too long. So they try and get distance in between their connections. They can also work very hard to protect their freedom, so they delay commitment for as long as they possibly can. They do commit still, but it can be a much longer process. They can be hypervigilant about a partner's attempts to control them or to limit their autonomy and freedom. So any perception they have that their partner is trying to control them is really not, they don't enjoy it at all, and they're quite heightened, so they're watching for it all of the time. They can engage in distancing behaviours, so they can do very specific behaviours that will cause distance in a relationship, like flirting, making unilateral decisions, sometimes big decisions about the relationship without actually talking to the other person. They might completely ignore their partner, or they may quite openly and overtly dismiss their feelings and needs, which can feel very painful to the person on the receiving end. And they are more likely than other attachment styles to actually engage in casual sex. Okay, so some of the other issues that perhaps you need to think about when you're looking at your particular style of attachment are things like, how do you or your partner react to direct requests for closeness? First of all, do you actually make direct requests for closeness? But if you do, what happens? How do you feel about that? How does your partner feel about it? Do you or your partner try to meet each other's needs, or is there some defensiveness or some discomfort around requests for closeness or spending time together or meeting needs that you have? Do they accommodate you once and then they return to distancing behaviour? So they may say, yes, I'd love to spend tonight with you, and then you might not see them for another week. Or they may not answer their phone, or they may not respond to emails, so that there's then a distancing behaviour after you've had a connection. Do they welcome closeness and connection, but they require lots of reassurance about your commitment and about the relationship itself? Do you sometimes, really doubt the relationship, even though it looks like it's really committed and he really is in it? Do you wonder and worry that, oh gosh, maybe this isn't going so well? So you look for lots and lots of reassurance, and he says things like, I've told you 100 times I really like you. I'm really in love with you. I really want to be with you. I'm really committed to this. But there are still doubts inside your mind. Okay, so just something to remember, that somebody who has a secure attachment style will not play games with you, will communicate well, and will compromise. People who have the other styles of attachment really struggle with some of those things. It's not necessarily deliberate, but it is a pattern of behavior they've learned over a long, long period of time. And so, you're going to be able to tell quite quickly if a person is securely attached. Watch TV shows, look around you in the office, watch people in your community, and you'll be able to tell those people who appear to be quite securely attached. So yeah, keep an eye out and see what you can find. All right, I've got some questions for you then. Did you see your own attachment style in some of the things that I just shared with you? What about your current partner or your parents? And of course, what about the style you use with your own children if you have children? So I'm sure that during some of that information I presented, you would have spotted some things that made you go, that sounds really familiar. Understanding your attachment style and the person you're in a relationship with, or you're considering being in a relationship with, is vital in my opinion. And it'll help you to have a happy and fulfilling relationship. Here's the rub. Relationships activate our attachment style. So we can only really work on changing our attachment style itself whilst we're in a relationship with another human being. However, there's still a ton of work that you can do to improve how you manage relationships generally by yourself, so that when the time comes and we do partner, we're able to have a more secure attachment style with that person. Your intimate relationships will unconsciously stimulate your attachment style and your attachment wounds. And I guess this isn't a fatal blow, people. I guess whether you're in a current relationship with somebody and there are attachment problems within that relationship, this will highlight the section we've just done is going to highlight for you very specific things. It will explain to you behaviors that go on in that relationship. And when you know something, you can do something about it. It's when you don't know, you have no chance of changing anything. So I guess when it comes to attachment, if you are partnered currently, it's not the end of the world if you have attachment problems, because now you're aware of it. And what you can do is actually work on those attachment styles with your partner, discuss them, talk about them, change them up. I really strongly believe that relationships are about repairing the old stuff and fixing the old stuff. So if you're in a relationship, knowing this information is really helpful. If you're not currently partnered, it's still helpful, because when it comes to partnering again, you will have an awareness of who you're picking, why you're picking them. You'll be able to see why you're activated by certain things, why certain things are making you distressed, and then you can start working on changing that behavior. So, what can you do? Well, if you want to avoid relationships that hurt you because of your attachment style, some of the things you can do is you need to work on things like self-compassion and self-acceptance, which are nothing like self-esteem. I'm not a big believer of self-esteem. I don't think it's a good thing, but I do believe in self-compassion and self-acceptance. I think self-esteem is about comparing ourselves to other people and whether we're good enough or not good enough, whereas self-compassion and self-acceptance are literally that. They're about accepting that I am absolutely perfectly fine exactly as I am. I don't need to change who I am. I'm good enough. When I wake up and take an oxygen every single day, I'm good enough. And being kind to ourselves when we fail, because we all fail, we all make mistakes, we all fall over, we all make poor choices from time to time. So being compassionate and kind to ourselves is really, really important. Another thing I think that's really important is learning to communicate well and to be assertive in our communication style. And I think many women find that really, really challenging. But it is really important to be able to ask for what you want and need. That's really important. The other thing is to set boundaries, and for many people, especially if you have had issues in your history, it can be quite hard to set boundaries. So learning, what your boundaries are, how to articulate your boundaries, how to set boundaries, people, and what to do if people decide to ignore your boundaries, because sometimes people do, is really important. Okay, another thing that's really important is identifying, honouring, and assertively expressing your emotional needs. Now, it's hard enough to say, let alone to do. But I think being able, if you know what you need, and you can express what you need, and you can honour it, then you have more likelihood of getting your emotional needs met. So that is also important. Risking being authentic and direct, I think, is really hard to do in our culture. Women particularly are fed the story of serving others and being kind to others. And I think, being authentic and direct about what you need and the vulnerability that comes with that is really important. The other thing is trying to play games or try to manipulate your partner's interest. And there's my phone again. Okay. So, don't play games. Don't manipulate it. I understand why some people feel that they need to do that, but it's really important if you can learn other strategies that are more helpful and more likely to get you the things that you actually want and need. And finally, stop reacting. Oh, so easy to do. Not really. And learn to resolve your conflicts and detach from your partner's stuff. And I guess detaching is an interesting word, but I think being able to stand back objectively and have the space between what is quite a strong emotional response to something and your actual response can help you get where you need to go. And I think learning to do that is really helpful in relationships and really can make relationships really fulfilling. So there's some strategies around attachment and around how you manage attachment.